Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while since we've done a little field trip, and I thought it would be fun to take you to a brewery that I keep hearing about from friends here in town. It's in a little tiny town called Apremont that has a population of less than 2,000 people. But apparently they make very good beer. We traveled about 20 minutes outside into the countryside. It's always such a fun experience to get away from the seaside and to go into the interior. You also pass through little towns that you would never notice were there. It's just really fun. Luckily, we were traveling with two friends because it can be hard to get around in these little back roads. You have to really follow the signs to make sure you're going in the right direction. So we just kept making all the turns our friends made, and lo and behold, they took us right to the spot. As soon as we pulled in, you could see these beautiful old stone structures, and it just looked like such an idyllic setting. Well, looks like we made it. This is so great. No, so we've just arrived with Armel.
Bonjour.
Oui, tu peux dire bonjour.
Bonjour, Bess.
You guys might remember Armel. She has the Petite Cabane that we shot last summer. So she's the one who told me all about it. So we have to go see.
Yes.
On y va.
Yes. Okay. We go.
We go. I was really curious to know more about these buildings because it looked like there was maybe a main house and this was maybe the outbuilding or some kind of a barn. A lot of people like to come here in the summer, and being up here now, I can see why. The view is so beautiful. It was also sort of fun to see that old truck in the corner. I think it just added to the ambiance. And as we walked inside, we saw the logo of the brewery, which has a bit of a story, which we'll get to in a minute. Once inside, it was amazing to see the space of this building. It was so beautiful, and I'm sure a lot of work went into its restoration. We somehow lost our husbands on the way in until Armel spotted them at the pinball machine. What are they doing? This is funny, and this is something that you will see a lot in France in bars or even cafes. Pinball machines. Sometimes they can be old vintage ones, sometimes they're foosball machines, but there's usually some kind of game just waiting to be played. And this is something I've learned about my husband when we're in France. When he sees one of these things, he cannot resist. He's like a moth to the flame.
En fait, le Grand Duc, si tu veux, il y a...
About 30 years ago, this property was a concert hall and had some pretty famous acts that came through here. One such notable name was Ben Harper.
Autrefois, c'était quoi?
Alors, il y a très longtemps, c'était une ferme.
Kevin explains that yes, a long time ago it was a farm, and the building we're actually standing in was the barn with cows and chickens and pigs, the whole lot.
Et moi, je suis arrivé en 2021.
Then Kevin bought it in 2021, and he wanted to keep the musical side, but he also decided to turn it into a microbrewery.
Et l'idée, c'était de refaire une nouvelle version du Grand Duc.
To create, in a sense, a new version of the Grand Duc, that one that would keep the musical side, but would also incorporate his second passion, which is making beer. Then he took us back to show us how it's done. I have to say, I was so impressed how clean it was. It looked almost like a hospital. Kevin explained that's not by accident.
La bière, c'est très sensible aux bactéries.
Ah oui.
Donc,
Kevin explains that beer is very susceptible to bacteria, and they spend a lot of time just keeping these tanks clean. Then it was time to get a first-hand lesson on how beer is made. I thought this was really fascinating because I really had no idea how it worked. The process begins in these big tanks, and Kevin was nice enough to take me up so I could actually look inside them to appreciate really how big they are. That is a very deep hole there. Don't fall in. In that big hole, I saw little pieces of grain, or little pieces of wheat, I guess. Shooting these videos is always funny because there's this kind of combination of French and English. Wait, no, bien sûr. Trying to find the words in English to understand the French, and but I think we've got it down. Here's what happens.
700 litres d'eau.
He put 700 liters of water into these tanks, along with around 250 to 300 kilos of barley. The barley comes from local cooperatives here in Vendée, as well as all over France. This solution infuses together, and then it's ready for the next stage, where it is boiled with the hops. This is what creates the unique flavor of the beer. Kevin likened it to winemaking. If you have a Chardonnay from France or a Chardonnay from California, they're going to taste different based on where the grapes are grown. It's the same thing with the barley and the hops. Then this solution travels through a pump over to these big tanks, and then we start the fermentation process. These tanks can hold 1,000 liters each, and it will take 2 weeks for the beer to ferment.
On est 2 brasseurs officiels, plus un...
Kevin explains that there are 2 beer makers full-time who make the beer and 1 assistant who helps with all the bottling.
C'est assez manuel chez nous. Hein.
What's kind of amazing is even though this is a machine, it's a manual machine. Even the labels are put on by hand. So a lot of times in beer production, you'll see a machine like this that will be automatic, but these bottles actually have to be pushed into place. They line up with the machine, and then all of the beer is put in manually. Then we had to ask about the logo because that little owl is everywhere. Well, it turns out he's not so little.
On va fêter ça, on va au resto et après cet après-midi, je vous amène ici pour...
Kevin explained the day that he signed the contract on the building, he told all of his employees, let's go to the place and check it out to celebrate. So they did, and way out in the distance, he saw this owl.
Le Grand Duc, c'est assez lourd comme oiseau, donc il faut un petit peu...
The Grand Duc is the name of the variety of owl, and the former concert hall was named the Grand Duc. So when they arrived at the property and they saw this owl, they thought, okay, we better keep the name because this thing is formidable. It can be about 3 feet tall with a wingspan of about 6 feet.
Donc du coup, le rapport, le côté oiseau de nuit, on est bien ça.
He's called the night bird, which is actually a great turn on a phrase because that's what people are called in French that go out at night. So he figured there was the double meaning and that would be a fun name for the bar. Which I guess we have the same phrase in English. We would just call it a night owl. Then he took us in the back of the warehouse where he showed us all the beer all packaged up. It was pretty impressive to see all of these bottles sitting in boxes that were ready to be sent to local restaurants and businesses. And he sells a kit for making beer at home. You have all of the materials and ingredients inside the kit, along with an instruction booklet for learning how to make your own beer at home. But I had to ask why the American flag was on the box and what did American Pale Ale mean?
Ouais, il s'appelle American Pale Ale. C'est juste ton
Parce que
style.
l'American Pale Ale, c'est un...
Kevin explained, yes, it's just a style of pale ale beer, but he did note that the instruction booklet is both in French and English. Then it was time to try the beer. The bar was starting to fill up.
Quand les gens parlent de la brasserie, c'est celle qui retiennent le plus.
This is the most well-known beer that they serve at the brewery. It's not bitter like some beers can be. It's actually more on the sweet side.
D'accord.
Avec de l'alcool, bien sûr. C'est pas très du tout.
But of course with some alcohol in it.
All right, down the hatch. We're going to try this. There's like... Oh, that's really good. It's super fruity. It almost tastes a little bit like it's kind of a combination between a cider and a beer. Usually you don't drink a lot of beer. It usually seems really yeasty to me, but this is very fruity and almost like a cider.
Je me rappelle plus des textes que tu as sectionné en bière.
Delish. All right, you try now. You're more of the beer drinker, so I'm curious what you think. Isn't that good?
It's very good.
Isn't it fruity? Don't you feel like it's more like a cider?
Pretty light too, you know.
Yeah.
It has a lot of flavor.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Then to complete our experience, we had to try one of their famous planches. These are these charcuterie boards that they put together with all local ingredients.
Donc on travaille qu'avec des produits locaux. Là vous avez la
She had some ham that came from a producer located just down the street.
Vous avez également des fromages qui viennent d'une boutique qui s'appelle Bayer.
Some cheese from a local cheesemaker that we know because they come to our market every week.
Pour les légumes, des pickles.
Then she had some pickled vegetables and some cornichon and something I thought was really interesting, which was just some raw sliced turnip, which were quite refreshing, all from a local farm.
Et le pain?
And the bread came from a local baker who actually grows his own wheat and then makes the bread out of it. I mean, can you get more artisan than that? We were excited to try it. It looked delicious. And then we also had to try some of their rillettes, which was a beef rillette, which is a very French thing to have during the cocktail hour. It's kind of like a meat pâté. You serve it with cornichon and spread it on toast. And, of course, the famous préfou, which is typical for the Vendée area. It's like garlic bread like you've never had, and they serve it during the cocktail hour, and it's super delicious.
Merci.
Okay, we're going to try the rillette, the beef rillette. What do we think, Amel?
Non, tremble, pardon. Tremble.
Ça, c'est bon. Wow, this place was really filling up. It was so amazing to see how many people just showed up in the course of about an hour. They were getting ready for a musical act, which was about to begin, and I had to make my way through the crowd to pick up our préfou.
Okay, now I know we've all had garlic bread before, but what makes this so delicious is it's on a crunchy French baguette with the most delicious French butter, a ton of garlic. There's just something so decadent about eating it during the cocktail hour. No dinner needed.
So good.